welcome to the container panel. And let me just quickly introduce you to the panel members. Filippos Prokopakis, he is the CEO of Danaos. Danaos, obviously one of the world's largest independent owners, with around about 92 ships, including 18 new buildings. I'm not sure how many have delivered by now, but 7. Okay, so still a number of new buildings in the size of 6,000 to 9,000 TEU, just what Max Woodcock just said. Good sizes. Plus, you have multi-investing. You have 10 Cape-size bulk carriers as well, and you're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Then we have John Su, founder, president, and CEO of Erasmus Shipinvest Group. They're based in Greece. John mainly is out in Asia and Singapore. The group has by now 70 ships, of which they have around about 20 plus container ships. In particular, recently, your main acquisitions have been in the container space and MPP space as well. Then we have Adam Catsambis, commercial manager of Eurobulk and Euroseas. They are Greek-based owners with about 25 container ships of the size of 1,000 to 4,300, including 4 new buildings of 4,300 TEUs, luckily unfixed. Maybe, well, it's always good, usually, as the market holds on. And Euroseas is listed on the Nasdaq. Then we have Poul Hestbaek from Volk Maritime. Volk was founded in 2023 by the Saudi state, and it's a shipping company for the regional. They want to be a regional container player. They have a number of owned container ships by now and operate a few. Paul has been CEO of Hamburg Süd before when it was acquired by Jörss. So Paul is an old insider of the shipping world. And then last but not least, Philipp Jörss, head of vessel portfolio at Hapag-Lloyd, and Hapag-Lloyd obviously 5th largest container line, and together with Maersk and the Gemini Corporation. Let me just give Paul a chance to maybe say 2-3 things about Volk, because when I proposed Volk also to Capital Link as being one of the panel members, they said, Volk who? And maybe some years ago, some people would have said ADP Ports, Safin, who's that? So maybe just why, everybody else is pretty much known, and maybe for some of the audience, why don't you say a couple of words about Volk?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for dragging me out of the desert. So Volk Maritime is based, headquartered in Riyadh, and I can tell you that it's 450 kilometers from the nearest coastline. So I have never in my life, my wife neither, been so far away from the water. But we're getting used to it. Volk Maritime was, as Clemens was established, it's owned by PIF. It's one of the big public investment funds in the world. And they have 3 purposes. Purpose number 1, Saudi Arabia has a big focus on logistics. And part of that is centered around the port of Jeddah and the port of Dammam. Volk Maritime has to create a feeder network that covers all the adjacent ports. So all the ports that are around the rim of the Jeddah and the northern part of the Gulf. Second, Volk Maritime has to become a regional shipping line, so carrier, own bill of lading, container, equipment, etc. We are building that up as well. And thirdly, Volk Maritime was created in order to help address supply security for Saudi Arabia, which has been a problem now with the Red Sea closing of the Bab al-Mandab Strait, but more so during the pandemic. There was stuff that could not get into the country. Those are the 3 drivers of why Volk Maritime was established. That's also a reason why that we will carry a higher share of own tonnage than probably most of our competitors will have in that. That's because of the supply security.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, just to set the stage a little bit of where the container market is currently, and obviously it has been very much at the center of the US-Chinese trade conflict with the tariffs and the port fees. And we have many new building orders coming. And the back and forth on the Chinese-US discussions had obviously a lot of impact on trades, customers rushing cargoes to the US or shuffling around of container ships in the trades. Now that's paused, as we learned. Otherwise, the market is generally moving on a very high level in terms of charter rate and S&P prices. At the same time, the box rates are much lower, and most of the liner companies, Drewry at least, expects many of the liner companies to face losses in 2026. This due to overcapacity and the fight for market share. However, as we all know, the liner companies are really full of cash. Now, let me ask the first question to Philipp. What's difficult from the outside to understand is how much inefficiencies are at the moment in the system of the liner companies due to all these reshuffling of ships because of the US-Chinese discussions. You had many owners who are like Danaos listed in the US. There were maybe penalties for that. How much is in the system of Hapag-Lloyd, or maybe you see it also for other companies, is there inefficiencies still existing, and how long may be lasting?
Yeah, there's indeed a lot of inefficiencies, and that's mainly because we have to make do with what we have. Yeah? There's really no way we can get additional capacity in the spot market. As you know, vessels are being fixed forward more often than not, and especially long term. So yes, reshuffling has to take place, but we have to make do with what we have, and there's a lot of inefficiencies. Vessels being in the wrong place, in the wrong service. We have not homogeneous deployment of capacity, and we expect this to continue for a good while, unfortunately.
Okay, so you don't think that the inefficiencies now, where we have this 1-year suspension, that you will sort out things quickly?
No, also because we had inefficiencies before from the Red Sea, and I would also argue that if the possibility would be there to go through the Suez Canal again, we wouldn't be seeing massive overcapacity, because first and foremost we would see that the inefficiencies will be solved, and secondly then hopefully will be all going slower, and that will, I would hope, take away a lot of the what people think will be overcapacity whenever it's happening.
Whenever it's happening, indeed. Paul, for you, you obviously are not faced by all these US-Chinese discussions and the tariffs. What are your challenges in your business, on your trades at the moment?
Well, first of all, I think the disconnect between charter hire and freight rates, that of course is a challenge, and it's particularly a challenge in the regional trades where the margin is very thin. You move very quickly from a positive small margin to a negative small margin. So that I think is a big challenge. I think just adding on what Philipp was saying on inefficiencies, here is a few really hardcore inefficiencies. So Hapag-Lloyd, through the acquisition of CSAV, they were operating 11,000 TEU vessels. I recall maybe a little bit bigger, but let's say 11,000 TEUs between Far East and into Istanbul and into the Black Sea. Right now, this trade is covered by 1,500 TEU vessels. Even 1,100 TEU vessels trade from Asia into the Black Sea. That's inefficient. They have 1,700 TEU, and a service that is actually running now, a 1,700 TEU vessel that runs from Asia through the Bab el-Mandeb and the Red Sea all the way to St. Petersburg. This is inefficiency galore, if we talk about that. So at the time that the Bab el-Mandeb will open up, or at the time where the crisis, and let's hope soon, between Ukraine and Russia, and there's a normalization, then all these vessels is going to come back into the market, and they will come back very fast. And that is one of the reasons why when you're sitting in a regional trade that you cannot pay for a Bangkok Max 1800 modern TEU vessel, you cannot pay 26, even for 12 months, $33,000. There is no freight rate that can pay for that in a regional trade. And that is actually the challenge that you see in the regional trade. You have to give up some of the charter. You can see, we understand that we have a vessel that one of the colleagues that was here earlier today that we are going to hand back in a few weeks, which we cannot pay in the regional trades. And that is one of the big challenges that we are faced with.
Yeah, it's I totally agree. This what you have in many markets when people look at ton-mile demand. That's really there's hundreds of ships which went out of the normal trades into the Russian trade, and we've sold ships built 97, 1,000 TEU ships, and they ended up trading Shanghai, St. Petersburg, and you want a very old, for that trade. It's amazing, and ton-mile demand is certainly there. And this tonnage, I agree, will come back, and you see why many. We're saying, well, this tonnage will not come back. You just have seen MSC buying tonnage from Chinese operators which have been trading Russia. MSC has been trading Russia all the time. CMA now is thinking of going back. Let's see if when Hapag-Lloyd might go back to Russia. It's quite challenging, I'm sure, to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of inefficiencies. But you said also with the freight rates and the charter rate disconnection, and maybe when I pass this on to Filippos, what's your expectations on the charter rates and the freight rates and the disconnect? Will this continue or not, or what's your expectation on that?
I think on the short to medium term distance, I think this will continue, and the reason it will continue is twofold. One is, as Philipp said earlier, obviously there's a very tight supply. A lot of ships have been tied up currently long-term contracts, so these ships are not coming back. Therefore, despite freight being in a declining environment, the tight supply will certainly keep charter rates elevated, or where they are, let's call them. But the another most important reason for me on the medium term is that obviously you have an influx of new building ships coming in 27 and 28, especially from specific liner companies that are coming in, and definitely these companies would want their ships to be filled. And in order for that to happen, maybe they will try to take market share from someone else. The pie is there. Therefore, that would, in our opinion, create a need for other liner companies under that bracket to try and get ships to secure the market shares they currently have. Therefore, on a short to medium term basis, we believe that the market will remain elevated.
Adam, you follow, or what's your idea on that?
Definitely there's this connection between the freight rates and the higher rates that we see in the market. The freight rates that we refer to usually are the freights of the main liners on the east-west trades. Those are the biggest freight indicators. Higher rates usually refer to the chartering from the main liners of ships owned by non-operating owners. And we have two different situations there, where on the larger sizes we have a lot of new buildings coming in. We have seen a great increase in the number of ships between 12,000, 13,000 and up. And in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see a doubling of this fleet with all the incoming new buildings. So there is a huge supply there, which despite the blank sailings, I'm not sure how much the main liners will be able to hold out on their own competition. On the smaller sizes, the feeders, Panamax up to 6,000 TEU, we have most of the ships chartered out on long-term periods. We have a lower order book. And we have CMA and MSC having taken out more than 550 ships out of the pool available to charter. Even the Far Eastern charters have built their own ships. Many charters in the Far East have built their own ships. So we are seeing two different situations. One where there's a lot of big ships coming and hitting the water, and another where in the smaller sizes we have an idle fleet of less than 1% and no available ships for the liners to fix in the immediate term.
Yeah, and what I very often do is I refer also back to the times 2005 and 6 when the container market was extremely high and the German ship owners made a lot of money and were actually buying ships from the liner companies who were short of cash, buying them, the KG companies, with the charter back for the liner companies. The liner companies were fighting for market share, didn't make money, and the German ship owners made a lot of money. So I would agree it might continue for a while. Now, John, you must also believe the same, because you've been buying many ships, many container ships recently, and you know, usually there's been all the liner companies buying, but you're buying as an independent owner. I wonder, do you have a different calculator? What equity do you use, or are you over optimistic on the market or realistic? What do you see?
Thank you, Clemens. Looks like a bit complicated feeling, so. Very good afternoon to everyone. Very happy to be back. Like last year, I was here in multi-segments panel. Now I'm more dedicated for container ship, like for this year. Well, also thanks to Clemens for giving some ships sold to us earlier this year. Same like some friends, German owners in this room that sold some ships. Really deeply appreciate for that. Well, to that strategy, I will say that...
if you pay good money, yeah, they're happy to sell to you.
Nice. I do hear what the panel speakers talk about, the disconnected charter hire rates. Well, from investment point of view, let's say talk about asset investment. Well, the TC higher earnings, I do believe is the best segment in all shipping market at the moment for container ships. Still the best one. No-brainer comparing whatever the bulk carriers, gas vessels that we have in our fleet. Definitely we are actually, as we speak, maybe Mr. Ponti bought another few ships already. So actually, that's what we have done this year. Probably is very, I think it's less than 1/3 of what Mr. Ponti bought still. And we missed out so many ships sold to MSC and other buyers actually. Well, if you ask why we become so firm, I will say that from my humble experience in southern part of France back to 25 years ago, I will say that the liner market maybe is facing and experiencing ongoing some big structural changes compared to 20, 30, or even 40 years ago, when the global trade was dominating the whole market structure at that time. And we see also like 25, 30 years ago, China entered WTO and very quickly became the world manufacturing center at that time. So we say that how the economic scale made great sense. So at that time, we all believed that big ships are beautiful. How big, how beautiful it is. Well, today, probably we say a huge change structure-wise from size of the vessel to the trade patterns globally or regionally. I would say that probably, I do believe that what Poul mentioned, and I believe also companies or players like Folk or other regional trade, there will be still a large space room to grow in a global but local basis. So like some areas like Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asian countries, certainly there will be more growing potentials for the demand. And then size-wise, of course, personally, I'm a strong believer for smaller size of feeder vessels below 3,000 TEU. So we will keep buying up to 50 ships, hopefully. So that's the plan to do it. So, I mean, okay, people are talking about maybe we are peaked in the market. Yes, maybe. But on the other hand, if the market really crashed in 1 or 2 years' time, I would say that we are also welcome to that crash. So that means that we will see cheaper assets, and then also probably in a certain moment, we may also enter a relatively operating business in certain routes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I agree from the point that particularly also in container shipping, when you have the charter periods changing a lot, when paying maybe now a high price, you can secure a lot of cash flow. Once the price goes down 10%, maybe the cash flow you can secure goes down 25%. So it's maybe not so bad if you buy high, but you can secure the cash flow obviously as well. And when I look at you, Paul, now Mario Adolf, one German actor, once said in German, "Ich scheiß dich voll mit meinem Geld," meaning you have a shitload of money, and the Saudis in the background. I wonder, why are you not buying more? Why are you not going forward more with all the background and all the money you have?
I guess the short answer is because they follow my recommendation. I learned once from a very famous Hamburger from Hamburg Süd days who said, when you are seeing a market like this, there's only one thing to do is sit on your hands and do nothing.
Well, ship owners usually can't do that very well.
I know it's hard, and you have to practice every day. But as a matter of fact, that's actually what we're doing. We feel it's now it's not a time. Now it's a time where we do big mistakes, a potentially big mistake. I must say everybody is doing it. So that's why that we are basically holding back a little bit. We have a very aggressive growth strategy, but we are pausing it, and we will probably pause it through 2026 because we feel it's the wrong decision right now. Let me just make one comment on when we talk about the supply and demand, because I think that's an interesting one. We all kept thinking about a Ponta, and for that matter also Rodolfo Sada, they're buying a lot of second-hand tonners. They're buying a lot of smaller second-hand tonners. And everybody's saying, well, that's because they want to have 30% market share, or CMA want to be number 2. Nobody is really thinking about what exactly is happening, which I believe it's much more intuitive. They are actually drying out the market. They pick up all these tonnage. If you look at what is sitting with the guys like you, is less and less. So you can imagine if you are sitting in one of the others that is trying now to build a ship that they need fix the vessel that comes in 2026, a very old vessel, and paying top dollar for it, it is the fear of losing out. Because if you keep on seeing the tonnage that those two companies have bought up, very soon you will have to call them and ask for a ship, because they'll be sitting on them. That's maybe exaggerating, but think about it, that this is actually what is happening. They're drying up the market on those tonnage. And that's power. It's not market share. Market share you can always get. This is power is, you sit on the tonnage. And this is what has been developed over the years. So the supply and demand is going to be a different discussion going forward, because the tonnage will increasingly sit with the MLOs.
Yeah, quite right. And interestingly, MSC has just been purchased a vessel with a 3-year Maersk charter attached. And I wondered why the hell are they buying that? And the answer actually I got from someone was because they just want to piss off Maersk. And I wonder with Hapag-Lloyd, I mean, you have been ordering a lot of new buildings, but you've not been active on the second-hand market. And I sometimes wonder when particularly MSC is buying the ships you have in the trades, when your trades, with Hapag-Lloyd charters, will you wake up one day and regret not having purchased, or do you see this and saying like, well, then we just have to reduce some of our trades because we don't get the ships? How do you look at that?
Well, first of all, I think we're not sleeping, so we won't need to wake up. We look at the market as it is, and we run the numbers, and we look at our broader strategy. And our strategy for Hapag-Lloyd has been grow the fleet, increase the average size of the vessel. It's also we also have, as Max alluded to earlier in the other panel, we have a lot of focus on sustainability. And I think what MSC and CMA are doing, they're buying a lot of retrofit projects eventually. So the way we look at things, we don't think we are missing out. We're fulfilling the tonnage requirements that we need for our network, that we need for our growth strategy, for our sustainability strategy. And for the time being, we think indeed the numbers for second-hand tonnage are quite high. And if you look at the new building parity comparison, then I think it's better to build more efficient new vessels, as we've recently seen in the market happening, luckily. So I don't fully agree with Poul saying eventually the independent owners will need to be knocking on MSC's door to get tonnage, because there has been a lot of ordering, especially in the smaller size segments this year, and I think this is good news for the market. There's also an urgent need for more efficient and more modern tonnage in those segments, and in a couple of years we'll be seeing those vessels, and they will be not in the hands necessarily of CMA and MSC. Some of them will be, as they've been also active on the charter side, but on the new building side, I see very encouraging signs by independent owners ordering very efficient tonnage.
Yeah, maybe a question to our two Greek. Well, I take you out now, but to the listed ones here, to the listed ones who have been more active on new buildings recently. And particularly the Greeks, it felt like a little bit over the summer, the fear of missing out on the Greeks of ordering new buildings. What do you see yourself? I mean, you have a lot of new buildings. You have 4 which are coming, but will you order more? What do you expect from your Greek counterparts? Will they continue as they have, or what do you see?
Well, we have seen a number of Greek owners entering the container market in the last year. Companies that traditionally did not have containers are buying containers, are buying new buildings. Companies that had withdrawn from containers are buying again. So there is a tendency in the Greek market to go into new buildings. I think people see the lack of ships, and that this is going forward, there's going to be a lack of modern ships, because even the ships that exist today and the ships that, as we said, are being fixed next year for 3 years at very high rates, those are ships that have been built 20 years ago, and the fuel efficiency doesn't fit the future. The world is going into a more fuel efficient direction. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we will need a lot more fuel-efficient ships. I think a lot of Greek owners have seen that need, and they're moving to order more.
And Clemens, if I can add to that, it's not only fuel efficiency; it's also cargo intake, flexibility, storage flexibility, homogeneous intake, the ability to use these vessels in very different trades, etc. So I think modern vessels go beyond the rate, the fuel consumption, and that should also be considered the homogeneous intake.
I mean, since 2022, we have engaged in a 25-ship new building program. Or, as you rightfully said before, all our ships range between 6,000 and 9,000 TEUs. That's our sweet spot. We believe that segment needed the most renewal. I think other panelists mentioned that, even other panelists before us. Therefore, we are continually looking to that segment to potentially add on here and there, as we have done recently. For us, the strategy is clear. We order on basis of our balance sheet and on speculation. We charter then after that. We think that makes more sense for us on a return basis. It has been in recent transactions that we have concluded. I wouldn't rule out also engaging in other kind of ships and other kind of projects with our partners, with our liner partners. Definitely the sentiment is not the same as it was a couple of years ago. But as rightfully everybody said, the market needs renewal. We need to continue on that basis. We need to renew the fleet. Therefore, maybe the new building program going forward will not be as ambitious, but definitely add-ons here and there will happen for sure.
And will you also look into Capes yourself, or just you say with the second-hand ones?
For capes, for now, if you look at the price where they are, new building prices and second-hand modern ships, let's call them, which are discounted over that, and the earnings, we're at a market where Cape-size asset prices are all-time high, and the revenues are not really there. So if you really examine the curve, we think that for now, because of the supply-demand situation and because of there's no new building coming in, we believe second-hand capes are more of the way to go on that segment rather than ordering something now. So we will continue on a second-hand basis.
And will, for anybody of you, when you look into new buildings, and Hapag-Lloyd particularly has done many big ones recently, the suspension of the US-Chinese port fee situation, will that influence your decision making now, or will you look into new buildings and just see where is the best value in money and don't care whether it's China or Korea?
We always try to have a balanced portfolio in terms of where we contract. Unfortunately, when looking at smaller size segments, it's very difficult to find Korean yards who are willing to even quote you a proper price. I know Capital has done a lot of smaller vessels with Hyundai, but that's basically a one-off as far as I see it. So our take on fees and things like that, we don't plan for that. I think it's very difficult to do so. So we try and balance our portfolio. We try and find the best deals when we go out and order new buildings. But we're also very mindful of maintaining a balanced approach wherever we can. So we will always return to Korean yards, regardless of fees, regardless of prices being high or low. I think it's also important not to become to
Chinese yards, Korean
yards, in order not to be too dependent on one single country.
Yeah, and that might be particularly for the smaller feeders, you're in the hands of the Chinese at the moment. John, you've built in Japan small feeders. What's your experience?
Well, sorry. We are the sole believer for Japan market only for new buildings. So we never have experience for a second country on the planet. So far we still have a dozen ships in different yards in Japan, including some small feeder container ships. But on the other hand, as I said, I think I definitely agree with what Philipp mentioned. Like in Japan also, it's a very limited new building slots for container feeder vessels. Maybe mega vessels there are still, but the building capacity is very limited, actually, on the other hand, comparing with the Chinese yards. And I've been talking about feeder sites. So, but still, the Japanese one is very much matured products. And then we don't feel that there's any potential risks or concern or worry about any future geopolitical issues. So we try to stay away from any trouble-making potential risks. Yeah, thanks.
And well, do the Japanese have the workers?
Well, that's a big topic we had actually a couple of months back in Tokyo. Definitely, there's almost each yard in Japan, they are facing the labor challenges. Of course, there are increasing foreign workers in Japanese yards at the moment. So they are getting trained. And of course, some yards, smaller yards, probably, I would say relatively, they are more struggling than the big mega yards. They have more systematic works already been well in place. So the smaller yards, it take a little bit of time. So, and also the productivity for the smaller yards is also limited to 5-6 ships a year only. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I also recently heard that Vietnam had delays on new building orders because of lack of manpower. So even in Vietnam. Now, I'd like to bring one topic up for discussion here. Looking at the statistics, looking at supply and demand. And when you look at the supply side, you have so many TUs coming. But that's always the nominal capacity, not the homogeneous capacity. But you put the nominal capacity against the demand, which is obviously the homogeneous intake. are the statistics wrong? And is that the reason of why we really haven't seen any oversupply in the market? Or what's your take on that one? Maybe Adam?
I wouldn't say that the statistics are wrong in that direction, because as Philipp rightly pointed out, the homogeneous capacity of the new buildings that we see now is higher in relation to the nominal. So when you're looking at statistics, you're looking at percentage changes of either the TEU capacity or the volumes moved. So if the statistics are skewed, they're skewed in the other direction, because the TEU capacity that is coming actually will serve more slots in the end. It's
But don't you have a difference like of 30% difference, let's say, on nominal and homogeneous
yes,
intake?
you do.
So
Yes, you do. But this 30% in the past is now 20%. So when you're looking at the nominal figures, a 10% increase in nominal capacity is actually more than 10% in real capacity. So in real terms, you are getting more capacity with the same nominal figures.
Philipp, do you agree?
I would say that what you're seeing is mostly a lot of inefficiencies, which is difficult to measure, I guess. Yeah, you can look at individual deployments of vessels, and then you can work out at load factors the TEU mile demand, etc. But let's face it, that's a couple of thousand vessels to be plotted and traded. I think that's the difficulty. So really working out the TEU mile demand is difficult, and I suspect that despite a lot of effort from research that goes into that, it's not accurate. That will be my take on your question.
And if I can add to that, we definitely, as Philipp says, seen a lot of inefficiency with all the shuffling around of the world fleet due to geopolitical events. And also inefficiencies, I would argue, are being created by the upsizing. We see bigger and bigger ships coming into ports. That means that the port will have to have more berth space, will have to have a deeper draft. Some ports are river ports, and that's not easy to do. They have to have bigger cranes. They have to have more yard capacity, and more importantly, they have to have rail access and road access for the land transportation to pick up the boxes. We see MSC now calling in Africa with 23,000 TEU ships. And we read that truck drivers in African ports can wait for days to get into the port and pick up a box. What's happening is that the economies of scale that are being created in the sea passage with bigger ships are exposing inefficiencies in the ports. And only the other day, the CEO of Maersk was calling for a bigger investment in European port infrastructure, which is starting to fail because of bigger and bigger ships coming in. So on top of all the other inefficiencies, we have the port structures that cannot comply, creating congestions and less efficient handling of the whole transit. Also, we see longer distances because of the geopolitical events. A box going from China to the US now might have to go to Vietnam and Mexico before it arrives at US. So it's inefficiencies, I think, are absorbing a lot of the tonnage that is available.
Okay, well, inefficiencies is driving it. Philipp said earlier, when Suez will potentially open, it will not change necessarily much. But we have 1 minute left, just a quick one, yes and no to it. Still, I think when Suez will open, there's at least the mentality might change a little bit in people's mindset. But thinking ahead, 1 year from now, will we have a safe passage through the Suez Canal, or will we have status quo? Maybe start with you.
I think nobody has a crystal ball to say yes or no. Anybody can guess, but I do agree with Philipp in the sense that when we do see the Suez opening, inevitably we're going to see ships slowing down significantly, especially due to the capacity that will be coming in. Therefore, the fear that the opening would create such an overcapacity, I think is not really justified, not to the extent that everybody's talking about, at least.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick yes and no for Canal, the Suez safer passage next year, yes or no?
For me, no.
No.
Thank you.
The most professional approach I could use would involve the toss of a coin. I don't have one now. I think
it's difficult to look more than half a year. Maybe you should ask the question for half a year.
If you tell us how
Then
things
that's no.
can develop in the Middle East, maybe it can help us, but there's a lot of factors that will play a role.
Now, Paul, you're an insider almost.
Well, I'm located there, yeah, but that doesn't give me an insider. No, I think that we have been planning for middle of next year. We are now more leaning towards the end of next year.
Yeah. Philipp?
I hope yes, for the sake of the environment. It's millions tons of CO2 added to the atmosphere for going around the Cape.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.